Usually, when I talk to Justin from Elevation Homes, we talk about what he's up to business wise and how things are going. But Justin and I were talking recently. Dave Scott Hub Media here, by the way, folks, and Justin from Elevation Homes. Thought, well, jeepers, let's dive in a little deeper on small businesses and just, you and I have often off air have often talked about the struggles, the successes, and what it's like to be a business person in this era today. I mean, you and I both have started. We're going to give away our age here. We've both been doing it a long time, and we've seen tax upon tax come upon us. We've seen struggles where people don't seem to want to pay their bills. We've seen highs and lows of every discretion. And we kind of thought it'd be fun to do a series of shows and talk about small business in the sense that, hey, we're there for you. We know the pain. We know what those struggles are. And my first question is, when did you know, or when did it all start for you that you wanted to be your own entrepreneur, your own business person? When did that hit you in the face hard?
Well, honestly, Dave, I mean, I'm glad that we're at least trying this thing out because I do believe that this exists across every business, big, small, online, brick and mortar. You know, it's a bit of a popular subject because it's a tough thing to figure out for the everyday man, and we all look at the gurus in some cases, and it's like, how did they get to that path, and all those different levels of that path kind of thing, and it's just unlocking some of the mysteries and talking about, you know literally, I'm assuming more of it's struggle than success. It's usually the case, but so it's mostly how we got over those hurdles and stuff like that. But for me, um, I mean, this is something that is beyond even my memory. I mean, I have to go to my dad in some cases to kind of get some of the info, because a lot of it is it's erased. I mean, I didn't have the greatest of childhoods when I was growing up. I wasn't in a war or anything like that, but there was definitely some household trauma there that definitely took myself and all my brothers and sisters for a pretty wild ride, and in a lot of cases that ride is still ongoing for some of them. I mean, I use it in a different way. I tend to take that stuff and use it to empower me, whereas a lot of my brothers and sisters, unfortunately, have gone on different roller coasters with that. Sometimes it's an aid, but most of the time, it's
Hindrance.
it definitely a bit of a hindrance, right? So, I mean, for me, I can remember, you know, way back in the day, I think it was 12 to 13 era of age, just getting into high school. And I was into all kinds of stuff, all kinds of different sports. I love angling and fishing. I actually liked a lot of mainstream sports, but not for the reason that most people do. I liked the the media of mainstream sports, so I liked things like the magazine prints, the baseball cards, and how those things would trade rather than the sport itself, if you know what I mean. So I
Yeah, I
used
want
to
to.
have a very large, you know, antique card collection, antique baseballs, footballs, all these things. But I still to this day don't know how any of that's played. Like that's how little I know about mainstream sports. I mean, a lot of you guys don't know, or maybe some guys do know, but we're kind of into the action sports side of thing.
Yeah,
My kids both do two pretty extreme sports, and we know nothing about the other side. Sorry, Hockey Canada, but anyways, but that's how it. That's I remember running. I remember setting up a small, almost lemonade stand out of my basement. There was a slider window, and that slider window was almost like a drive-through. And
oh
I
wow.
put the word, if kids in the neighborhood wanted to buy and sell cards, they could come to my slide-up window, and I advertised this, and my mother went like friggin' bananas because there was constantly kids walking through our damn backyard. And it got to the point where I actually made enough money to buy my first dirt bike with it,
That's
with
pretty cool.
buying and selling these cards. So, I mean, I guess that's where it kind of, that was the original for me.
When you were saying, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole about your family, but I do find, I think, and I'd be interesting to put this out to other folks that are in business, because I do find when you have struggles early in life, as an individual, like I think my scenario sounds similar to yours. There was a lot of
Right.
stuff going on there, but I think that independence comes through more. I think you learn to survive, and I think you learn what it's going to take in a different sense of the word. Maybe you don't realize that's going to help you down the road as an entrepreneur, but you do have this sense of self. And I wonder if you had that. Can you talk to that for a second? Did you? Did you think you did?
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I don't mind. I'm pretty open book about it. I've talked with I talk to everybody about it. I mean, I talk to clients about this sometimes because sometimes I get so in depth with my customers. These types of things actually come out, and I mean, these stories exist all over the place, and that's why they do come out, right?
Yeah.
And whether you're a business owner, entrepreneur, whatever the heck you're doing, I mean, in some way, shape, or form, I believe if anybody's trying to achieve anything, they're doing their entrepreneur deal, whether it's independent or within another job. I mean, they're still doing it, right? So, for me, it was the product of divorce. So my parents, we had a good time for a little while there, for sure. I mean, if there's five of us, and we had the typical middle income family life. A couple different houses. Leveled up a few times. My dad ran a pretty successful marketing business back in the day, although it was all print and calendars at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even know at the time that I really liked that stuff until like later, and I'm like, you know what? I wonder if I like that stuff because of my dad. But point being is that things broke down, and the the divorce started on its way, and then we got the news right around that same period of time that I was talking to. I was 13 and change, and then my brothers and sisters all younger than me. So anyways, it hit when you're a fairly close family, and then it with a lot of members as well. Those things break you down pretty quickly. And I don't actually still to this day know the full story of my parents' divorce, because it's a pain point, so it's not like I inquire about it, right? But what I do know is that it was a really rapid decline, and I'm sure this exists everywhere. When things are split and people's minds kind of have that drop off, and that decision has been made, it's like, okay, I need no part of this anymore. And both my parents literally dropped that off a cliff. And
Mm-hmm.
so it got to the point where in 6 months' time, it's like they had never known each other, and we were just in the mix. And then the fighting started. And again, they're still living in the same house at this point. They've decided.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the collapse keeps going and going and going, and then other people start getting involved. There's other boyfriends, there's other girlfriends, there's very
Yeah.
quick. And they definitely did not. I'm sure they attempted to handle it properly, but didn't really go that way. So to cut down the story a little bit, uh, it it affected me in a way where it made I'm a busybody by nature, and I kind of got to be going at all times, and if I'm not going and doing something, you know I get bored with it, and that's hence why I push so hard on what I'm doing right now. Is I mean, I just want something happening all the time. And when my dad was left, it kind of it left me a little bit bored. And you know what happens to 13-year-olds when they get too bored, right?
Yeah.
So I had a lot of really positive interests, and those I ended up not wanting to do my fishing, my hunting, my sports, all the rest of that, and it just turned into just being an annoying kid. I like nothing bad that I feel like. I mean, I wasn't robbing things. I wasn't doing anything outside of what you would call negative, but it was negative in the way that it was. I was putting more pressure on the family that was left, I believe, just by sheer boredom. I was bored. I didn't know what to do. I'd bug my brothers, bug my sisters. You know, I'd go and do stuff outside of, you know, my curfews and stuff like that. And you know, it wasn't bad, but it definitely certainly wasn't helping the situation. Anyways, my mom got fed up with it. We it came to blows pretty badly a handful of times, and then at one point, uh, you know, something really heavy was going on between my mom and my dad, and she ended up not being able to deal with it. You know, her mind was breaking down rapidly, and she told me to get the hell out. So, and that's when, and it and me at that point, because you know I'm kind of like, okay, you know, I've always been under those terms where if you tell me I can't do it, I definitely will. Like it's not like I
Yep.
will probably. I mean, I'm going
You're going to
to,
go there.
right?
Yeah.
It still happens to this day, and I tell my wife all the time. I'm like, please don't tell me I can't do it, because then we're not going to see each other for 6 months because I have to do it then, right?
Yeah.
So it's just one of my triggers, and I know it's there. But yeah, my mom kicked me out, and she said, and I said, "Are you sure you want me to go?" And she's, you know, and she's like, "You'll be back anyways. Don't worry about it." And she's like, "Just get out of here right now. I can't, you know, I can't deal with you." I'm
Can't
like,
cope.
anyways, so that turned into, you know, I never did go back. She never invited me back, and I never did go back. And she had a lot to work through, and I'm sure that she didn't want me not to be there, but I'm sure she did want me not to be there as well. And I think that's I mean that's the beginning of the I believe the start of what my character is today. Was the first night, and it was winter, you know, but that first night, and I walked to my high school, and I slept under the portable steps because it was completely enclosed in snow. And uh and that was the first night that I believe, you know, made me into what I do today.
How old were you at that point? Can I ask?
I was 14.
14 years old.
I was 14. Yeah, yeah,
So you learned early that this was going to be, you know, that's another thing too, that when you really, I mean, it's a whole different show, but we definitely want to address it because the mental health of people in business too. I mean, I think we really want to look at some of these backgrounds and talk to entrepreneurs that maybe have struggled as well and see where they came from this background, because there's a lot of similarities between you and I growing up that way. And obviously I didn't leave at 14. I was 17, but you kind of wonder,
close enough.
you kind of wonder when you hear these things, and I think it gives you different, and I wouldn't recommend this to any entrepreneur, but I mean, I think it gives you a different sense when you get out of that situation early. You're just trying to make the best life possible for yourself. You don't want to be in that environment anymore. And a lot of times when you're an entrepreneur, you're put into environments where you have to try and figure it out, right? You can't
Yeah,
just walk away. You've got to figure it out. And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges entrepreneurs face, is because they're always constantly in their business and they're doing that. And it's kind of like a relationship. It really is. Like when you think about it, it's you and your business, and you're trying to make sure that it's going to work. And you nailed it when you said, I'm going to do it for 6 months straight. I'm going to go and get this done. Because that's what happens to a lot of individuals in business. I did it. You put everything aside and you focus solely on this project. You know, you put every energy and step into it. You kind of forget about the people on the sidelines that you probably need to address as well, or you know, be more aware of. It's an interesting dichotomy, and I think this is a great start to it, because explaining all that background makes so much more sense later on in your story. I'm sure, like you said, you start to see these pieces at the young age fall into place, and you're like, oh damn, right? Like this, you
right.
learn to be independent. You understand what it's like to have nothing, and you understand what
Hmm.
it's like to have something, and
Hmm.
you're trying to find that place in between that works for you and your family and everybody else. But as a small business person, you know, I think folks leave comments, because we do want to talk to other entrepreneurs and see what they're thinking as well. And every story is different, but I think there's a story behind so many of these. And then you look at the numbers, you know, it used to be 1 in 10 fail, but I think it's probably down around 1 in 5 after the pandemic, with
Yeah.
businesses that just aren't making it anymore.
Yep.
And what's the reasons? You know, that's another show we can get into, because you and I both know what it's like to pay your taxes constantly, to try and keep up. to fend off everybody that's coming and just
Hmm.
work through things. And you've got to have that mindset that you can do it, or else you won't. You got to keep pushing through. You and I have talked about this in the past. Um, so you're on your own, and you're just sort of starting out life. I mean, so looking back on that now, can you give me 3 life lessons you learned out of that situation that maybe have helped you today?
Well, I mean, to your point there, Dave, I actually believe, and this is why I've studied some of this stuff sort of under the covers for such a long time. I do believe that the mental health thing of all people that are involved in business and entrepreneurism and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think it's absolutely directly related. I think like the greater the the mental capacity of the entrepreneurs, I mean, directly going to, it's going to produce an outcome that is either going to be successful or not successful. But in terms of those like life lessons, I mean, you want 3 life lessons that. So I mean, I guess honestly, the spite really kicked in at that point, um, as it would when you're. I mean, first of all, I mean, what you got to remember is that on top of the typical human feelings is that I have the hormones, right, and
Yeah.
they're rocking and rolling, making me think teenage things that are probably more exaggerated than they need to be at that time. And having a teenage son now who's, well, I mean, he's 18, and then I have a 13-year-old daughter. This is stuff that I use every day because this I can remember. Like I remember from that night forward. I don't remember from that night back. And then and that is something that I actually study because you know and that's a mental awareness thing is like what the hell does my brain do to erase my childhood but I remember everything from the winter's night forward. And
Yeah.
I tell you, I could probably tell you 5 things from age 2 to 14, and I'm 43. And I mean, and I know people that can tell me everything they got on their second Christmas, everything they got under that
Yeah.
tree, right? I got no clue. I mean, it's gone. I mean, it is more than gone. I can't remember anything. However, um, so there going forward, so I can't bring any lessons really that I know consciously from pre 14, but post 14, um, I very quickly learned like a couple of, and I would say they're all survival based because, like I said, I'm 14 years old. I've got all this spite for the universe at this point, and in my eyes, I'm in the worst case scenario because I can't even see, like, there's a million other people that have it worse off than what I'm doing right now. But for me, I'm like, I'm sleeping in the freaking snow and I'm not going back because she kicked me out and that was her decision and so on and so forth. And you know what? If that was her decision, I'm going to make that her decision for the rest of her life. And that's how I believe that I
Yeah.
felt, right? And because I mean, I've been pretty spiteful up until my mid 20s, where I started to become aware that it was spite. And now I've changed it from being from the spite to to creating this motivation to make me go. But what I've learned is how to the survival thing, like when it's as bad as it can get. And I've experienced this 3 more times over the course of my life. But when it's as bad, or your perception of when it's as bad as it can get, is how to not give up, like how to even trick myself not to give up, not to just not to lay there and just sit in the snow, let the school day go by. And and I thought about, then I remember I had never really slept that night because it was freezing, obviously. And don't get me wrong, I had my snowsuit on and all that. Like, I was prepared to go sleep outside, right? But I sat there all night, and I thought, and that was a turning point. I just thought, like, there's no way I'm letting this divorce or anything else from here on in beat me at what I want to do. I mean, it might be a pain in my ass my whole life to get there because I'm starting here. But I learned that was I guess the biggest thing. Second thing would be just like, I became resourceful really friggin' quick. And the next day I woke up and I went to school. I was at school, right? And I went to school because I'm like, well, first thing being it's warm in there and I know the cafeteria's in there, right?
Right.
And you just sort of, I think the second thing is like, you just start to develop this resourcefulness that is, and in my case, I mean, it was so quick. Like I started breaking down like, okay, if I'm not gonna ever go back, and she couldn't call me because we didn't have cell phones, right? I mean, this is 90s,
Yeah.
right? So at this point she has no contact, and I can have contact, but only if I choose, right? And she doesn't know what payphone I'm near, any of that kind of stuff. She did phone the school a few times in the next 6 months. I heard, but so yeah. So I mean, learn the resourcefulness, learn to be, basically start that fighter mentality. And I guess the third thing would be, coming up with a way in the financial side. It would be coming up with a way to make money quickly. And that's still to this day. It's like, if I have a big loss, I've developed a way. It's like, okay, you start thinking way outside of the typical boxes,
Yeah.
and like, how can I bring in funds quick enough so I'm not completely broke?
I want to go back to just to wrap up today's show, but one thing that you caught me with was the hockey cards, because I've got 3 boxes downstairs I've never
Yeah,
opened.
I know you do.
They're still stored away, and along
Yeah.
with the Huskies here, along with this section of baseball cards. So there you go. I'm looking forward to the next show, because I think we're on to something here, folks. Businessmen, small business guys, girls, leave your thoughts. Help us develop this show. We really look forward to it. Thanks for doing this.
No problem, Dave, and we'll have some more talk about you next time. It's not all about me,
Yeah, it's no problem. Take care.
Thanks.